Hey, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a few more minutes. We're going to let some folks trickle in and join us, and then we'll get going with the show. How's everybody doing today? As y'all join, if you don't mind throwing maybe where you're from, uh, what you might be doing with AI in the chat, that would be awesome to see where all these folks that I'm not going to be able to see your smiling faces, but I will imagine them as we go through talk today. We got somebody from Atlanta. Exciting. Hopefully it's not too hot there. All right, I know it's the top of the hour, but I'm gonna let a few more folks trickle in. I know everybody's probably got some busy schedules and want to allow some folks to trickle in. But as you're joining, welcome. Appreciate you being here. Looking forward to the next 30 to 45 minutes with y'all. As you as you're joining, if you don't mind throwing where you're from in the chat. Looks like we've got a few folks from all over the country. It just helps me kind of visualize where people are at, make me think about where I might plan my next vacation. Well, we got somebody from Phoenix. I can tell you right now, I might wait until the winter to join there. Probably pretty hot out there. I bet it's hot. DFW, okay. You've been sweltering with not as quite as hot as Phoenix, but I'm sure we've had some humidity the last couple of weeks. That's where I'm at right now, is in DFW. All right, we'll wait just 1 or 2 more minutes for people to join and trickle in. As you're joining, if you can, I would love to know where y'all are from. And if you feel so inclined, tell me a little bit about what you might be doing with AI, but more importantly, just where you're from. I like seeing where all the folks are joining are from. We got a few from Atlanta and Dallas and Phoenix. Unfortunately, all the hot places. Okay. Got somebody from Utah, Salt Lake City area, Virginia, Missouri. Okay, all over. That's exciting. More Dallas folks. I'm seeing people continue to kind of trickle in, so I'm going to give us another minute or so, and then we'll jump right into it. I appreciate everybody joining on, especially with your busy days, and we'll make sure that we can leave enough time to get through some of the content and hopefully interesting for y'all. And Santa Cruz, California. Bet you the weather there is much better than some of the other places I've been listing off. Right. 3 minutes past the hour. We'll give it 1 more minute and then we'll jump in. Oh, 70 degrees, California. I'll take that. I think it's just about to hit 100 degrees here in DFW. A few more folks continue to trickle in. Same ask. Tell me where you're from. Put it in chat. Promise it's just going to me right now. I'd love to know where y'all are from. Nashville. I used to live in Nashville. Love Nashville. Alrighty. I think another 30 seconds or so. Let a few more folks come in and we'll get started. All right. Well, let's jump into things. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for giving me really the next 40 minutes or so of your time. I'm David Romeo. I'm the SVP of Innovation at Aleda. And so here's my promise for you this session. By the end, you're going to be able to place your organization on a 5-stage curve. That's going to help you understand from scattered AI agents where you can actually trust them. And you'll know the one specific move that gets you to that next stage. So this is not going to be a framework poster. I promise. I'm going to help you understand what your next move with AI might look like. So 2 housekeeping things. First, drop any questions that you have in the chat as they occur to you. And if we have time at the end, I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. And there will be 2 quick anonymous polls. I promise they're anonymous. Nobody else is going to see your response. They're the most interesting part of this webinar, in my opinion, by far. So please, I would love for you all to play along. Here's the belief this whole session is going to be built to test. You don't scale by adding agents. You don't scale AI by adding agents. I know that sounds backwards. Every vendor pitch that you've probably seen this year says the opposite. More agents, more co-pilots, more automation, more everything everywhere. And most organizations are doing exactly that, buying tools team by team, tool by tool. I'm sorry, that's not scaling. That's scattering. What actually scales, though, is something less glamorous. That's the foundation of trust underneath those agents. That's who's watching them, what they're allowed to do, and how you know that they're working. If you get that right, though, each new agent gets cheaper and safer to add. But if you get it wrong, each new agent adds risk and cost. Now, if you disagree with me, that's fine. That's good even. Hold that thought, though, for the next 30, 45 minutes. All right, quick map of the ride. 2 minutes in on who we are and why you should believe anything that I'm about to say. And then I'm going to give you the proof, what the market data actually shows. That's going to be the heart of it, what the trust curve is and the foundation underneath it. Then we'll climb to real clients who moved up the curve with numbers. I'm going to reframe what the real challenge is. We'll look at the results. And at the end, the thing that you can do this week is a readiness check that you can run on any process that you're thinking about automating. Notice the 2 arrows on the last lines. Everything before that is going to be context. Those last items, though, are your takeaways. All right, quickly, who are we? I'll give you Aleda in 3 facts. We're founded in 2016, so we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary right now. We have 350 plus practitioners across 3 continents. We grew up doing custom software engineering and development, enterprise data platforms, and strategy. And we focus that into an AI and data practice nowadays. The one thing that matters for you, though, is for today's story, is we have our own AI platform. We call it our AI Accelerator. And what's unique about it is it deploys inside your clients or inside our clients' cloud environment, so your cloud environment. Your data never leaves your tenant, and everything you own, everything we build together on it. I mention that not as a pitch, but because it shapes everything I'm about to say about trust. We had to solve governed, auditable AI as a product requirement, but not as a slide. So that's the company. But a company's not going to earn your trust in the next few minutes. A person has to. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, who's actually talking to you, and the parts that usually don't make the bio slide. So as I mentioned, my name's David Romeo. I run innovation at Aleda. I've been 18 plus years building and shipping software across a variety of different industries. I lead AI, our accelerator platform, innovation, and architecture at Aleda. The off-the-record pieces there are because trust is the theme today, so let me model it. First of all, I love golf, but I've never had a hole-in-one. I've been close. My golf buddies will tell you, though, that doesn't count. But I think the interesting part is I'm an options trader, and I use AI to help me manage my own portfolio, which means I personally know what it feels like to decide how much trust an agent with something that costs real money when it goes wrong. That's not a hypothetical for me. So the question is, how much autonomy do you give the machine when your own money is on the line? That's this entire webinar, because every enterprise is wrestling with the same question right now, just with bigger numbers than my portfolio. The market has been running a very expensive experiment on it, though. Millions of AI pilots at thousands of companies. The results are in, and they're brutal. I'm going to show you a little bit on that. So before the numbers, I want to give you one definition because everything today hangs on it. When you have a chatbot, it's going to answer what you ask it. It responds, you decide what to do. But an agent's something different. An agent does the work. It reads your systems, it uses tools, it takes actions, it completes multi-step tasks. Think of the difference between asking a colleague, how do I process this refund, and handing them the refund to process. The first is going to be advice. The second's delegation. Agents are delegation, and that's exactly why trust is the whole ballgame on that. All right, so 4 numbers on where the market actually is. MIT's NANDA study looked at 300 enterprise AI deployments and found that 95% of generative AI pilots produce no measurable P&L impact. That's 19 out of 20. That's probably the headline stat that you've probably heard at some point in the last couple of years. Gartner predicts that over 40% of agentic AI projects, these are projects using AI agents as I just defined them, which is AI that acts, not just answers, they're going to be canceled by the end of 27. Their stated reasons are escalating costs, unclear business value, and inadequate risk controls. I want you to write that third one down, though, inadequate risk controls, because that's really where the trust foundation we're going to spend the rest of this webinar on. ISG found that only 17 of AI initiatives ever reach production. That's not succeeded, just reaching production. And just so you don't leave depressed, Johns Hopkins and MIT found teams of humans with agents are more productive than human-only teams. The upside's real. The failure isn't the technology. So here's the honest part. The line at the bottom, every one of these numbers is already dated. They were published in 2024 and 2025. In AI time, that's a geological era. The 26 numbers say the same thing, but just louder. One recent industry survey found that 88% of agent pilots still never graduate to production. And Deloitte found that companies planning to adopt AI agents, only about 1 in 5 have a mature governance model for them. So the real question isn't, what stat do I trust? It's, who do I trust to help me navigate a landscape that changes every quarter? Sometimes it changes every month, and it's starting to feel like every week now. But that's the real question this webinar is going to answer. Not with a logo, but with a maturity model that you can self-score against. So if the tech works and most projects still fail, what separates the winners? It's a curve. So before I explain what these 5 stages mean, I want your gut answer. There's a poll on your screen now. It's anonymous. Rate your organization 1 to 5 on the agent trust curve. 1 is going to be scattered and 5 is going to be trusted. I don't want you to overthink it. Just take 15 seconds, answer the poll, go with your gut. And a couple answers starting to trickle in. All right. Okay, so as these answers continue to trickle in, let me tell you what the words actually mean. Because the top of this curve is a much higher bar than most people assume. Stage 1, that's scattered. Those are individuals using AI tools with no coordination. That's shadow ChatGPT. No visibility, no policy, anyone follows. Most organizations honestly start here. Stage 2, that's seen. Sanctioned tools that exist and people use them. But it's chat. A human reads every output and decides what to do with it. The human's the safety system. Stage 3, govern. Now, there's a foundation you can see that AI is being used for. There are policies enforced in that platform rather than in a PDF, and usage is audited. Still, mostly human in the loop, but now it's managed. 4 is going to be orchestrated. Agents start doing multi-step work across systems. That's like reading tickets, updating records, drafting responses, with humans reviewing at defined checkpoints instead of every step. And stage 5, trusted. here's where I want to be provocative a little bit, because this is not a human reviews the chatbot's answers. Trusted means autonomous agents following your documented business processes. That's running long horizon tasks, hours to days, without supervision, and alerting a human only at the moments you've defined. The agent does the work, the human handles the exceptions. That's the bar. So ask yourself honestly, do you have a documented process an agent could even follow? Monitoring that would catch an agent drift off course in production? If the answer is no, you really can't be at a 4 or 5, because 4 and 5 are built out of those things. Now, I'm looking at the poll number. Some of y'all are looking at your number from 2 minutes ago and feeling a little itch. It's good. I want you to hold on to that number. Don't revise it yet, because you haven't seen what the climb actually looks like. What does govern take? What trusted actually gives you in a payout? Once you've seen it, I'm going to ask you again. But for now, know this. Most organizations think they're at a 3. Most are honestly at a 1 or a 2. So let's find out which one you are, starting with what's underneath the curve. And just in case y'all are curious, right now, it looks like a lot of folks are honestly mixed across the board. All right, here's the uncomfortable summary of everything so far. AI is the easy part. The models are astonishing and getting better every quarter, every month, every week. And you can rent them by the token. Nobody in this webinar will fail because the model wasn't smart enough. I can guarantee you that. What does determine success is the foundation underneath. And that's made of some unglamorous things. Documented processes, which are things an agent, so an agent can't follow a process that lives in somebody's head. Identity and access. What is an agent allowed to touch? Is it doing it as itself or a borrowed human login? Where does that sit? Monitoring. When an agent starts hallucinating in production, and occasionally it's going to, what catches it? How fast? And then finally, auditing. When somebody asks, why did the system do that? Are you able to answer that? What I want you to notice is how none of that is AI. It's management discipline applied to a new kind of worker. That's why Gartner's cancellation reasons were cost, value, and risk controls, not model quality. The foundation is what you're actually building when you do AI. The agents are just what you run on top of that. So what does climbing the curve actually look like? I'm going to give you 2 real stories with numbers. So we have 2 clients, 2 climbs up the trust curve. The first is a leader in the modular space industry. Their story starts where many of yours might. Security found an unsanctioned ChatGPT everywhere, and they shut it down. The demand didn't die, though. It went underground. That's a classic scattered stage. 8 weeks later, they were governed. And let me pin down that word, because governance sounds like a committee and a 40-page policy. Here, it meant 3 things. 1 sanctioned front door instead of 12 secret ones. Visibility into what AI is used for, and the rules built into the platform itself. So following a policy wasn't a memory test, it was just how the tool worked. Their cloud, their data, 8 weeks. Governed is not a committee, it's a deployment. The fastest way to end Shadow ID, the fastest way to end Shadow AI is a sanctioned tool, and that's better than the one you took away. So the second is a networking provider, governed in exactly that sense, hitting the wall every governed org hits. The first 400 users were the enthusiasts. Now every new team meant a fresh, is it safe for us to use? Conventionally, other security review, it might be another security review or another quarter of waiting. Instead, they went from 400 to 1,000 users in 3 months. If a new team wanted in, that's the same front door, same rules inherited, working in days, basically. The safety questions were answered once in the platform, so nobody relitigates them per team or use case or business process. And they're not stopping at chat. They're building onto it using something called MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. Think USB for AI tools. That's a standard that lets agents safely plug into your systems. And agent-to-agent protocols, where agents can work to each other. That's the same foundation that scaled their people. That's now what lets them delegate to agents. So the lessons from both. Adoption grew faster because of the controls, not despite them. So governance isn't the break. it's the accelerant in this case. So that's going to bring us to a reframe. What was this all actually about? Well, most AI strategies chase adoption. Seats, logins, weekly active users, token burn, things like that. But adoption without trust is just exposure. The real goal is earn trust, and earned is doing all the work in that sentence. You can't declare trust. It's really built from exactly three things. First, going to be visibility. You can see what every agent is doing in real time, no black boxes. Second is going to be control, which are policies that are enforced by the platform, not by hoping people read a memo. The agent literally cannot exceed its permissions. And the third is measurement. You have data on performance, cost, and accuracy. So is it working? Has a factual answer behind it. The human parallel that makes this intuitive is exactly how you might trust a new employee. Day one, you watch their work closely. That's visibility. You limit what they can touch. That's control. You review their results. That's measurement. And as they earn it, you expand the trust. Agents are really new employees. The trust curve is their career ladder. Nobody promotes a new hire to unsupervised running the quarter close in week one, and nobody should promote an agent that way either. Two results, though, from this one breath. The technical win was fewer incidents and safer scaling. So here's the least technical example I know, and it's probably in your wallet, the corporate credit card. Think about what that card actually is. Your company is letting thousands of employees spend its money without asking permission for each purchase. So why does that work? Well, it's because controls are built in. There are spending limits, there are approved categories, and a statement somebody can audit. Nobody calls that bureaucracy. We call it how you delegate spending at scale. Now imagine the alternative. No cards, and every coffee or conference fee is routed through the CFO for approval. That's most companies' AI posture today. Every AI decision escalates to a human because there's no card. Governance is the card. The controls aren't what slow the spending down. They're the only reason the delegation is possible at all. So for the technical folks on the call, this is the same result DevOps found years ago. The teams with the most automated controls ship the most often. Same principle, same punchline on that one. So on ROI, you get visible costs that compounds with agents. And here's how it compounds, because compounds isn't a slogan, it's a mechanism, and it works exactly like compound interest. When you build the foundation for agent one, the front door, the monitoring, the audit trail, that's principle. Agent two doesn't start from zero, it inherits all of it. So does agent three. You got security questions, those are answered once in the platform. Legal review, already done. Each agent also earns something, which is a track record. And a track record is what lets you widen the next agent's trust faster. Trust earned by agent one lowers the cost of trusting agent two. In a scattered organization, it's usually the opposite from what I see. Agent 10 costs as much as agent one, if not more. So you got 10 pilots worth of risk, it just continues to pile on. So if governance has been a scary word in your organization, and usually it's a word that means slow, here's the reframe. Governance is not the meeting that blocks your project. It's the thing that means there doesn't have to be a meeting. That's the whole argument. Governance doesn't slow you down, it compounds. All right, so back on slide 10, I asked you to rate yourself 1 through 5 and to write your number down. Now you've seen what the stages actually demand, what govern means in practice, what trusted really is, and what the climb looks like at two real companies. This is the same poll, still anonymous. Where are you all at, really? Answers coming in. All right, so what's interesting is, look at that. Interesting. So when you compare it to your first answer, here's the thing that matters for most of you. Oop, that number changed. So same organization, just a few minutes later. So the only thing that changed, or the only thing that really changed, is the words have meaning now. What tells you that tells you really the first poll isn't measuring your maturity, it was measuring maybe your vibes on that. Some of you went up. I think most actually shifted down. And so that's not me telling you you're behind. That's you telling you, now that you know what governed and trusted actually demand, that there's a gap between where you thought you were and where you are. And that's exactly where AI initiatives go to die. Stage 4 ambitions built on stage 1 foundations. Here's the good news, though, and it's genuinely good. You just did the hard part. You found your real starting point. So the only question left is, what's your next move? I'm going to give you the exact tool that we use for that. I want you to pick a process that most of you want to automate, the one that someone in your leadership meeting keeps bringing up. Now, grade it, honestly, against 5 checks. The first one's going to be documented processes and governance already need to be in place. That's not tribal knowledge, that's written down current, something an agent can follow. The second one is monitoring and auditing for drift on hallucination and production. Not we'd probably notice, it's something watching. The third is going to be leadership sign off on the specific processes being automated. That's a named executive on record, because when the agent makes a weird call, sometimes in the middle of the night, somebody needs to own that decision. And the fourth, data quality and availability assessed and validated. Fifth being team skills identified and training plans in place. So here's what we see in the field almost every single time. And it's on the slide. The 2 boxes that are usually checked are the last 2, 4 and 5, data and training. Those are the comfortable ones. They're the ones you can buy. The first 3, processes, monitoring, and ownership, are almost always a no. And those 3 are precisely the foundation stages of the trust curve, which is the entire diagnosis of this webinar by one image. Organizations prepare for AI, working on AI-shaped problems, and they skip the management-shaped problems that actually decide the outcome. If you have fewer than 4 checks, you're not ready to automate that process. You're ready to assist on it or augment the process with AI. That's a human firmly in the loop while you build the missing checks. To be honest, that's not a failure. That's just knowing your stage and doing the work of the stage you're in. Let me bring this whole session down to one sentence, though. Remember that first stat that I told you about Gartner? Gartner said that over 40% of agentic AI projects are going to be canceled by the end of 27. And the reasons were cost, unclear value, and inadequate risk controls. Every one of those cancellations is a company that skipped these 5 checks and automated anyway. 40% of the market is going to be a cautionary tale in somebody else's webinar. These 5 boxes are how you make sure it's not you. You don't scale by adding agents, you scale by earning trust. 1 check, 1 stage, 1 process at a time. So your one next move is actually 2 steps. I want you to do both. Step 1, right now, the first QR code that we have on this screen, it is a self-assessment. It's got 10 questions. It should take you roughly about 3 minutes. And it's going to place you on the trust curve with 1 clear next move for your stage. It's all those 5 checks that you just saw turned into a diagnostic. Take it before you close the window, before you end the Zoom, before you get back to the rest of your day. 3 minutes from now, you'll have your real stage number, not your poll guess. And step 2, I want you to sign up for our AI roundtable and bring those results to it. We're going to host that on August 19th. Now, here's the fun part. We only have 12 seats. It's deliberately small, and it's with our team. I want you to show up with that assessment in your hand, and the conversation then starts at, here's my stage, here's what I think my gaps are, instead of being on the ground floor. And if today's polls made you wince, that's the room where the wince turns into a plan. We have a few minutes for Q&A, so I am going to pause here, let you all take your phones out, snap some pictures of this, get those assessments going. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. I guess one question for the group while we're waiting. How much did your poll guess change? Did anybody come in thinking, hey, we're fairly well governed, and now we're maybe not so sure about where we are? Well, y'all think on that one. I do have one question here. Biggest mistake you see in scaling AI enterprise wide? I think the biggest mistake that I see in scaling AI enterprise wide is that, it's kind of hidden in this a little bit. There's a part that's also on the nose. The first part is that buying a tool solves all our AI problems. And I see that over and over and over again, which is where somebody says, hey, if I just get this tool in house and I get it into people's hands, we're done. We've accomplished our AI journey. But if hopefully you take away from this knowing that that's just the easiest part of the battle ahead. But the second part that I see being the most challenging is wanting to dive headfirst into automating something with AI, but not knowing that half of the process usually bounces between a couple of departments and it's a few people in those departments and the process is entirely in their heads. It doesn't work if somebody goes on vacation, the data isn't ready to be able to be consumed by AI. There's a variety of reasons why processes don't work, but most of the time they're just not documented. In fact, that's actually something somebody just put in here and talked about is not having structured data. Yeah, and I would say that is absolutely one of the hard parts because you can absolutely spend, you can blow your ROI on a use case with AI or a process that you're trying to automate with AI, where you'll spend all of your token budget trying to figure out what to do with the data, how to make sense of it. And then there's nothing left for the agents to actually do, or you've spent all your money relearning that lesson over and over and over again. What are the differences between scaling AI for a 100 million company versus a $1 billion company? I think it's really just understanding what the sprawl of the processes look like on something like that. I mean, usually at that size, though, data and systems start to become a big part of the problem. Education of different, whether it's legal or procurement or other departments on those pieces. So, I mean, all the problems kind of get turned up to 11 the bigger you get. And that's why I talk so much about having a really core and solid foundation, because that's something that you can scale on top of and not have to relearn and redo those lessons over and over and over again as you go. Let's see. We've got let's see, this is a technical question a little bit. As we're driving the agentic trust factor, are we leveraging A to A protocol for agent handoffs, accountability, and task completion, or some other system? And can you support multiple runtimes? I think the answer is you want to build on top of the protocols that exist out there today. And that's what our AI Accelerator does. That's what I advise most of our clients to do if they start to go down the build versus buy versus accelerate path. That is honestly another webinar at some point. But the reason that you want to do that is the industry moves very, very quickly. And the only way that you can ensure that when, say, the next training run happens on the next big model, that your model is going to be able to use the tools that you've built against it is to use the protocols that everybody's training against and everybody's building scaffolding around. So heavily, heavily use those protocols. The interesting part about this is that they're maturing very rapidly as well. as the models continue to mature rapidly as well. So it's not a case of, well, I have to wait a couple of years for this to mature. It's already there and being used. What has your experience been with cross company AI deployments? I mean, we've started and worked with different companies of that are geographically dispersed, have basically different operating models and opcos across different geographic regions. So, the answer is it depends on how the organization is set up. So, for example, if you have data sovereignty rules where you have to, let's say you're a geographically dispersed organization, you've got operations in the US, you've got operations in the EU. For example, one of the things that you might run into is the data sovereignty and privacy laws in the EU, say, for example, like Germany, are very, very different than how you have to treat things in the US. And so you almost have these small little organizations that you have to think about the trust curve within each of those pieces. But it's very doable, especially if you set the ground rules and you kind of get that foundation solid. You can scale really well on top of that because everybody's using, again, kind of the same technology and the same platform. And that's where I'm a big fan of the advantage you get with acceleration using an AI platform versus having to learn all the hard lessons and building your own or buying something that isn't compatible in some of those types of deployments and organizations. Probably have time for a few more questions if anybody wants to throw some others out there. I'm just going to scroll up real quick and make sure. Okay, here's an interesting one. 3 tips for getting data structured correctly. I don't know if there's 3 tips, but just in general, this kind of goes back to the how do you make AI work effectively for you? As you're going through the scale and as you're starting to automate more with AI and agents, the part that everybody talks about is, hey, this is it's usually something they find out is the ROI is not there. We spent all of this time and effort and dollars automating this thing with AI, but the token spend's too high. I think it's a couple of things there. Usually, one of the things that I see clients often reach for is they go for the smartest model in every deployment. And I'm sorry, you don't need a Fable class model to be able to look at a spreadsheet and pull some numbers out and tell you some information on that. You don't need Fable class models to be able to run queries against your structured data. Where you do need Fable class models, though, is if your structured data isn't set up in a way that supports your business process, your use case, what you're thinking about, what you're trying to automate with AI, and you end up relying on the agents to do all of the hard work that you should honestly spend some time in first place, which is getting your data platform and your structured data set up effectively and making sure that that all works really well because you want to be able to set the agents up for success and not have to have them construct or relearn esoteric queries against your data every time. And that can be a really challenging process for a lot of organizations that haven't had to take care of data quality in the past. So this is where you start to look at things that we've been doing for the past 10, 15 years as organizations, which is let's get all of our data in a data platform. But kind of like AI, you didn't do the hard work. You didn't structure it well enough. You didn't tie it to business processes. You didn't organize it well enough so that you can plug an agent on top of what we call a semantic layer to get it to be able to work effectively. And so that's something that you want to think about as you start to connect agents to data, to have them actually work within your organization, just not in the information that you feed it. And so here's the last question I'll answer, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. I mentioned the AI Accelerator. What is it, and how does it help meet governance protocols? So our AI Accelerator is it is the answer for what we have built internally to be able to provide our own AI governance capabilities, but we offer it to our clients. So it is a framework, software code, an acceleration platform that we install into your cloud environment. We deploy it on your servers. You bring your own AI API keys, or we plug into your cloud's model providers. Your data never leaves your ecosystem. No data ever phones home to Aleda. It is your code to accelerate your AI journey. And so where this becomes really beneficial, because this is a platform that you own, that we help you install, you can have the trust built into the governance from a protocol standpoint. So that means that if you want to make sure that agents can't hit various different systems, great, that can be handled day one. If you want to make sure that AI only uses agents only use the specified credentials to access various different systems or pull data, great. The credentialization flows down to the existing systems that already exist there. If you want to make sure that you're setting a process in place that AI agents will always follow, and that orchestrates across several different agents, and that happens the same way every day, and you have ultimate auditability down to what the model actually called, what it did, how many tokens did it cost, and be able to have that as an easy answer to a roll-up for, say, a certain functional area, domain, or business unit within your organization. Our accelerator allows you to do that. And so what it does is it's kind of this full life cycle governance capability that allows organizations to not just have a platform, but they can build on top of it and have the platform grow with them as they move up that agentic trust curve. So with that, again, I'm just going to take you back and ask you to please take the QR code, take the assessment. We would love for you to figure out where you are on the trust curve and figure out where your stage is at. Again, it's very short. It'll help you figure out those 5 checks. Please also sign up for our roundtable. It's going to be on August 19th. We have few seats, so we'd love to see you there. Would love to see you show up with your assessment in hand. And I want to thank you for coming to our webinar today. I hope you leave knowing your real stage and exactly the move that you're going to need to take to be able to climb on it. So thank you everybody for attending today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.